Hey everyone, welcome back to What the Fertility. Today it is just Kat and I, and we are going to chat about all things life that has been like happening lately. It's been quite the roller coaster for both of us. So we figured we kind of just update you guys and what's been going on, and just kind of bring you guys along with us.
I know, right? When was the last time we did this? Because I know last time we were like, oh, we're going to talk all about a managed transfer and everything, but I think we skipped a month maybe.
I think we did too. I think we like talked about like, oh, my transfer is coming up, and then like we kind of fell
And then
off
it came up so fast.
so freaking fast, like wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are we? It's May 24th
Yeah.
and you flew up to Michigan when?
I don't know, that first week of May, I think it was, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it,
Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, that's right. Because you only
Uh,
flew up once. For some reason, I was thinking you flew up twice. So you flew up once, and it was kind of like I say fast process, I think, because I wasn't the one going through it. But
oh, so
kind of how did that go? Because I know that you guys also spent time with the donor family, right?
did, yeah. So no, you were right. We actually did go twice because we went like the month before, or I
I
had to
think we
get those
literally,
procedures.
okay, that's right. I was gonna say, I don't think we've even talked about that. I think we last recorded in February. So you went
Yeah.
before.
So I did go, yeah. So if you're like just now listening, I travel for my embryos are located in Michigan. So like I have to travel there. There's like no, I don't know, like sister clinic or anything here that I could like use. So, I mean, I'm able to do monitoring and stuff here, but like for like obviously the big things, I have to like go there. So yeah, I had to go up in April and I did the like hysteroscopy and something else. What?
That's right, because you recorded in the hotel room. Yeah,
Yes,
it was just
yes.
a
Okay, yeah.
hysteroscopy. Yeah.
Yeah. So everything was fine. That was good. And then, so then I had my transfer literally like 3 weeks later. So then I went back. And so, yeah, so we flew to Michigan. And then we rented a car because I'm like petrified to like fly after the transfer. So
How did I miss that? You guys drove home?
yes,
This is
drove.
like the 14th time you've
It's
told
Ben.
me this too.
This time, and this time Ben came with us. So we, in like our contract, we have to see our like donor family at least once a year. And so we're like, well, we're already in Michigan. Like this makes sense instead of having to like come back again another time. Like let's just kind of knock it all out like once. So we're like, we're gonna bring Ben. So my mom also came. So me, my mom, and Ben flew there, and poor Chris drove both ways. So he met us in
Oh my God, I
Michigan and
thought
we
you
did
meant
like
you got a
11 hours.
rental. Oh, the dad's really pulling it here.
He came.
Okay. You never told me how it all went with the family.
It was good. I mean, it was good. Yeah, like unfortunately, the other family, because there's like three of us, and so the other family that is like was also the recipients of the like twins. Their kids were sick, so like we didn't get to see them. I was like
Right.
too scared to be around sick. Normally, I'm like I don't care, but I was like
Right.
not wanting because we met with them the day before the transfer. That I'm like,
Yeah.
I take a chance, and like she like had a fever and throwing up, like it was like sick.
Was
So
your mom as emotional as you thought because this was the first
I
time,
know,
right?
right? Yes and no. My mom did good. She like kind of was chill about it. But she did like talk with them and I mean, they were so sweet. They were like, it has worked out even better than like we could have imagined. And like, so like super grateful. But it was
That's
good.
awesome.
Yeah. We just like had like a little barbecue outside. The kids all played. Like the pictures that I get is so freaking cute. Like Ben and
Oh,
Maggie, they like literally just like love each other. Like it's really sweet. They're like hugging on each other and they just like Ben just like plays. Like so he just was
I
like
love it.
yeah, so
That's so cute. So then I guess that worked out well because your mom could watch Ben then when you and Chris went in for the transfer.
yeah. Yep, that's why we brought her. Because I
There
mean
you go.
totally, but yeah.
Yeah. So the transfer itself, pretty easy.
Yeah, everything was good. It's always like a little bit tricky doing my transfer because and we just both realized this, like we both have a tilted uterus. So like
Isn't that
it's always
bizarre?
like a little like kind of going over a hill. So like
Yeah.
it takes them a little bit longer, but the only thing that actually happened during my transfer was there was an air bubble that went into it. And I'm
Oh,
like convinced this is what caused it to not work. But I could be wrong.
really?
I mean,
So
this
wait,
is how the air
explain.
bubble fit.
Wait, you did or did
So
not have an air?
I did not.
So explain that. So somebody that's never gone through a transfer, right? Like you're literally like laying in the table. It's like a 15-minute process. Okay, I'll explain my experience, but I think they're the same.
Yeah,
The the embryologist brings the embryo in like in the stick. Like
yeah.
they have just physically thawed it, or do they thaw it the night before so they can kind of tell you?
Yeah, so they actually thought out, or at least our clinic does that morning. And then they come in like prior and like they keep checking. I keep getting ultrasounds to like check my bladder to see, make sure that I'm like whatever, I
That's
guess.
right.
So like that, I have enough, I don't know, pee. Like it has to be like a
Yes.
really full bladder.
Oh, I forgot about that part. Like you
And
literally feel
I
like you're about
actually
to.
was too full. So I had to
Mhm.
go let out for like, they literally like, okay, only count to 3 seconds and let out pee and then stop. And so I was like, oh
I
my,
could not do that.
I
I
literally was panicked. I'm like, I'm gonna let all my pee out. Like I'm not gonna be able to stop. Thankfully, I like could stop my pee like midstream. So
that's honestly really impressive.
so yeah, I had to like stop and then they had to like recheck me. But anyway, and then yeah, so then they come in with like a picture of their of like your embryo. And then they take you on back. I take Valium, so I was just like
Yeah.
fine. But yeah, then they do like the catheter and they like put the like thing up you. And so as they were doing it, they're like talking you through everything. And then
And you can see it on the screen.
yeah, so Chris and I are
Yeah.
watching everything. And you know, like when I mean, obviously everyone now like who's gone through IVF like has to do shots. You know, when like you get like an air bubble like in the shot and you have to like
Yes.
out. Well, that's like basically kind of what's happening. So there
Little
was
bubble in
a bubble
front.
in, yeah, and so they couldn't get it out, so it still went into me. So you can see like, and we have Chris videoed the whole thing, so I actually like have it on video that like you can see where the air bubble is, and then you can see where the embryo is. And they're like, it's fine, like it's that shouldn't affect
Yeah.
anything, like blah blah blah. Which I mean, I'm sure it happens many times, but
I know
I
you're just, I know, like that's the hardest
happened with
part about.
Ben.
Right. That's the hardest. And I know like maybe listeners haven't seen our stories and so they don't really know kind of what happened, but I think that's the hardest part when something doesn't work or ends in miscarriage. You literally are just grasping for straws, for lack of a better word. You're like, what was it?
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, so basically, but other than that, everything else went smoothly. She said my like uterus, everything, my lining looked beautiful, everything looked great. And so then I was sent home and yeah,
And you started testing 4 days.
4 days fast transfer.
Okay, so did you with and like every pregnancy is different, but with Ben versus this transfer, did you have pregnancy symptoms at all? Like,
I
yeah,
had nothing
with
with that.
me with Ben or with this, yeah.
So like that's why I also like was just like, I don't know, because
Concerned.
I literally didn't feel anything with Ben until probably like, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks, 8 weeks,
Right,
like like later
right.
into like it. Once I knew I was like more like pregnant, like I
And you
then
like already had the ultrasounds and everything, so you weren't really like somebody that like symptom spotted, I guess.
yeah, so I wasn't really looking for that. I was looking at the lines like a psycho, like
Right.
really crazy. I mean, you know, I texted you and called you about 100 times a day.
I would do the same thing. So for listeners, are you comfortable sharing what happened?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
like
you
from
got we got a line on day 4, really?
yeah, it was super faint. I mean, like we're talking like super faint, but you can still see it.
Yeah.
I was able to see it.
Well, I was able to see it via like a picture sent to my phone, which I know because I've done so many tests too. Normally, like if you can see it, you're not going to even be able to see it in the picture. So, I mean, while it was light, I still feel like it was dark enough to see via photo.
For sure. Yeah. So with, and I'll just preface with this, like, and I know it's not great to compare constantly like to other pregnancies because every pregnancy truly is different. But like this was all I was going off of like what a success looked like through IVF. And so I was like comparing it to Ben. And so, and I got a positive. I tested on day 5 with Ben, like post transfer, and his line was so strong. I mean, like it was like there's
That's
no
crazy.
denying it was a second line, like strong. And then just from
Right.
there, it only continued to get darker. And so that's kind of what I was just like in the back of my head, like always like, okay, like this is what it's going to start looking like. And
Well,
so
I think for somebody like you that did have success the first time, you don't have that feeling of the shoe's going to drop or is this, you're just like, I had the transfer and I got a dark line on 5. And so that's kind of what I'm really expecting to happen. I'm not expecting to go through this roller coaster.
yeah, and I think also because like my issues was always like I couldn't create healthy children. Like I couldn't create a healthy egg. Like I couldn't create a healthy embryo. So like for me, I was like, I know I have a healthy embryo. And so this was
Exactly.
honestly, even though like I've heard it, hello, we've had this podcast for 3 years. I've heard people tell me these stories. I know that like you can have healthy embryos and the transfer still not work. But I think in my head, I was so like, I know I can carry a baby. I don't have an issue carrying. I
Well,
just have an
especially
issue.
because you've already had a
Yeah.
full-term pregnancy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in my head, I was just always like, I mean, of course I was skeptical, but I think I was still just like, this is just gonna work. Like I think I was like,
Right.
it's not gonna work, but like it's gonna work.
Yeah. Oh, I totally get that.
Yeah. And so I think that is what hit me the most is like I have said from the beginning, like, oh, I have 3 kids. And
Right.
so I
So I was
that's
just gonna
been the
say, so
hardest thing.
I know we're kind of jumping around. Like I, of course, obviously we were in communication through all of this, like when you get your beta, everything. And I don't think it even hit me until a week later where I was like, oh my God, Amanda's grieving like a family of 5.
Mhm.
Like not, yeah, not just that this just like ended in a loss, but like you've always thought you were gonna have 3 kids. And so
100%.
I think,
I like
yeah,
have
I
my whole like the way I've designed, like, I know this sounds so minuscule, but like the house stuff, like, I'm like, okay, I know which room each kid's going. And like, I mean, it's these things that you just like get so excited for and like you just plan. Like, I'm like, oh my, I always saw around our kitchen table, like these 3 children.
right,
And
right.
so it's just so weird that like that's not
And
gonna
not to say that that's still not your case. Like it really isn't. You really don't, but you really don't know. You
yeah.
seriously do not know. There are insane stories out there of even people, I mean, who knows? Like you and Chris can, whatever, get pregnant naturally. You just don't know. But at the
I mean,
same,
I know that, yeah. Like, I mean, whatever's
but
meant to
it's
be.
at exactly, but it's at the same time, you're not there picturing 4 or 5 kids. So like that too isn't like necessarily in your plan right now. And I just like that has to be really hard because it hit me like a week after everything. And I can only imagine for you.
Yeah, now I'm like in this, which we can like obviously I'm jumping around, but like now I'm in this stage. I'm like, Ben's just gonna be an only child. Like,
I was driving when you texted me that. And he was
so I'm
like,
like
I'm gonna
fully now convinced. Well, it's honestly just a coping mechanism for sure.
I
Like
was like,
in a
what
rational
are you
state of mind, I can
talking?
understand this is my way of grieving to like kind of like make myself not as upset of that I'm
Yeah.
been
Well,
for
now you're like, okay, I'm not even gonna think I have 2 kids. Like, I'm gonna just think about like what I currently have. So I know, okay, sorry, listeners. So you got a positive test, and
I
then
did.
I wouldn't say it necessarily got lighter, but it
Not
definitely didn't.
yet. No. So like I tested again, obviously at day 5, and then I tested like 3 times a day.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so I basically just kept watching to see if the line got darker. It didn't necessarily get lighter, like you said. It just like was not changing. It kind of was the same. And then day 6, I did another one, and that morning for sure I thought was lighter. But then you were like, just do a digital, just see if the digital comes
I
up.
know, I feel horrible for
So,
doing this.
honestly, it was cool to be able to see it because that was like a still I like got to see like it said pregnant and like I've
Like,
like to
okay,
see that
that
literally like only very few times. So it's like sweet to like be able to like, oh, I did see that. I get
that
that.
is like later in this episode, I want to talk about that. But like when you do go through infertility or loss or whatever, like you cling to those like seeing pregnant or even seeing like an empty gestational sac or like whatever that is, you're clinging to those small little items. And I feel like sometimes you're like, I know this is the only thing I'm going to get of this pregnancy and this baby. And like it's so special.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, Eileen and I like took every picture of that and like literally clung
Yeah.
on to it. But yeah, so I did get a positive digital. So I think that was like a what the F because we were convinced that I mean, like I had like told everyone like this is going to be a chemical. Like I was convinced of it. And of course, like my family and everyone is still trying to be like super supportive and like you're still so early and
Right.
this. And I'm like, yes, but I know what is supposed to be happening and what's supposed to be there, and it's not there. And like, I
Right.
know no one wanted to be the one to tell me, like, yeah, this is probably not going to work. So I think
Right.
everyone was just like waiting for the doctors to tell me that. And then, but
Right.
I mean, it's fine. Like, I knew it. And I think for me, and like someone had asked me this, one of my friends who has not gone through fertility, like infertility issues or anything. She's like, don't you think it would have been like easier if you just like would have waited till Monday when you did your beta? And I was like, honestly, no, it would have been so much harder for me if I would have this whole time just been like in this bliss of, oh my God, I'm pregnant and this and this and this. And then on Monday be like, and then I get the call and they're like, yeah, actually your numbers are too low. Like this was like,
Yep. It's like a slap. This
I'm like,
everything that you're saying.
no, I needed
Yeah.
to read this and like prepare myself for this call.
Slowly
Yeah.
and your own time. Yeah, like that's the same. And we'll get into my stuff, but like I thought like early testing, should you just not do that? Should you not do beta? Should you not do early scans? And yes, there's arguments for that, but at the same time, if someone were just to like you just go in your 8-week scan and you're like, oh, there's no heartbeat. Like I feel like if you could have grieved up to that and just had that like, okay, I know I'm coming in here and it's very likely that this is going to be negative news. Like for me, I think that's still what I would want.
Yeah.
And like for you too, you're like, instead of, I don't know what your beta was, but like, you can kind of be like, okay, I know it implanted and I know it just didn't move forward instead of like, well, it just didn't even work. Like, I do think those early, like
Yeah.
knowing you had HCG and stuff, like, I think that also helped you determine what's next and kind of like mentally like, okay, well, I know that the embryo implanted. I think that kind of stuff is helpful, at least it is for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, for sure. And I know not everyone like feels that way. Some people like
Yeah.
genuinely want to know until they like the doctors tell them and like, hey, whatever works for you, like do it. I just know like for me, I needed those days to like really
Yeah.
prep myself for that
And
call.
until you've been through all this shit, like you
No.
don't know what you really need. And then you're
Yeah.
like, oh, I totally would not, I would
No.
have never one that said that, or I would have never one that did that. Like yeah, we'll get into mine, but I had a friend say something that I was just like, are you an absolute moron? Like, why would that come out of your mouth? But we'll get into that. We'll
Okay,
get into
so I'm gonna chime in with you.
Okay.
So crazy. So of course, Kat and I are like we talk all the time, and so I literally am texting her through all of this, and it was what? It was day 4 when I first got the positive.
You
That
first got the positive and texted it to me, and you were like stressing. You were like very stressed out. And because you were just like, I don't know, I'm in limbo, I'm in limbo. And I would say, like, probably 4 days prior, I accidentally got pregnant at the same time that you got pregnant. And I say accidentally just because, like, I think on all of these episodes, right? I've said, like, yeah, we're going to start trying in January. And then I've changed my mind and kicked it down. And I just wasn't ready to
yeah,
go through everything that I'm going through now. Like I was not ready. And so we weren't trying. I never got back on birth control. I think you knew that, right? I
yeah,
never, and you didn't either.
no.
Right. Yeah, I never got back on birth control, but I've always for like 5 or 6 years used the Flow app. And so I used it to get pregnant and I always was successful. And so I was like, I'll just use this to not get pregnant. And I always was successful. And I will say in April, I would say like March and I would say in April, we got really lazy. I was just like, whatever. It's been, 18 months. Like we've been really good. We just like don't have sex when I'm quote unquote ovulating. But when I started running like that, my cycles went from 28 like that. I've been running a lot. So 28 to 34 days. And so I just was like, okay, I've never had longer cycles. It's probably the cortisol, the stress. I'm not even probably able to get pregnant right now. And so I will say in April, we got really, really lazy. And on day 35, I was like, should probably take a test. I felt really, really sick. My boobs were really sore. And sure enough, I was pregnant. So I didn't tell Amanda because I just like
I'm
didn't
like,
know.
I
Yeah,
wanted
I
to
didn't know. And I was like,
believe.
oh my God, what are the chances? She's been planning this for 2 or 3 years. Like you had perfectly planned out your transfer. And I'm like, I'm such the asshole friend that accidentally got pregnant when like I know how that feels. And so when you finally sent me, I didn't say anything. And then you finally sent me the test and I was like, what did I say? I was like, would it help if I let you know we're in this together? And you
That's
immediately
exactly what
FaceTimed
you
me.
said. I literally, honestly, I like dropped my phone and I was screaming in excitement. I was like, not even like the slightest bit, like anything towards you.
Even I know, and even then I was like, should I have said anything? But it was so hard because like I was in the beta waiting game.
Yeah,
I'm like, okay, I'm doing a
you
beta
really
too.
wanted
Like
to
I don't
squeeze it.
freaking know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. No, I was freaking out, so excited, obviously. I literally FaceTimed her immediately. I'm like, what? And then she like sends me the video and everything of them like finding out. But yeah. but it's been crazy for you. It's been for
Yeah,
me.
it's big. It was crazy for both of us. Okay, so hold on, let's figure out. So I had a beta and I had both betas before you even had your first one,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so I had the first beta and it was 166, but this is just the weirdest thing. In my entire time of ever even trying to have a baby, so from January of 2020 until March of 2024, I have tracked everything. I track in my app like when we have sex, I track like if I'm ovulating, I track symptoms, everything. Last in April was the first time I never did that. And so my beta is 166, but I have no idea when
How,
I could have ovulated, when my cycle, like I'm like, am I 3.5 weeks? Am I 4.5 weeks? Am I five
yeah.
and a half weeks? So it really didn't mean much to me, honestly. And then I think I told you like 1,000,000% it's gonna be down. Like I knew because again with Brooklyn, I had hyperemesis. So it like you didn't have symptoms, but I was sick from day one.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really have symptoms. And then the second beta came back like in the 400s. And I was like, whoa, that's wasn't expecting that. And then I think I even had a third beta before you had yours, or did I have the third around the same time you
No,
no
you had the third beta before. Yeah, you had
before? And
before.
so like it was just, don't you think it was just such a weird dynamic because we talk about this every single week for almost 3 years.
Yeah.
And you're like texting me, how are you? And I'm like, shit, I have good news. But she's over there like not having good news. It was just so hard. I think I even texted you. I said, this is just weird. Like, this is just weird. I don't know what to say.
I know, but I feel like, and honestly, I think because of everything you and I both have gone through, that like it did for me at least, like it didn't feel as like I wasn't like, I don't know, like I
Like,
don't
annoyed.
know at all. Like not if it was like someone else, probably I would be, but not with you. And I don't mean
Well,
that like against anyone else, but like
right,
because I know how hard and everything you've gone through that for me, I was like, oh
right.
my gosh, what if we could truly do this together? Like this could be amazing.
Well,
So
that's what I think was
I have
so
hope that it was going to work for both of us.
exactly. And I think that's what was so crazy. And then I know it was Monday and you texted me, you literally just texted me a heartbreak. And I was just like, I felt
Okay.
so bad. I know I had, and I don't like you grieved because, and you probably still are, but like you didn't talk to me for like 3 days
Yeah.
and I didn't expect you to. And it's, you know, what's funny is we actually don't talk every day, but like I was just hyper aware of like, is she okay? Like, I don't know what to do.
I know. No, I mean, I just like feel like I needed like a second to like process
Yeah.
that happened. Like I mean, obviously, like I said, like I truly knew it was going to be that result, but there was always like that slight chance that I was just
Yeah.
wrong and that maybe it just implanted late. And like, so of course
And
I was still like holding on to that like little sliver of hope of like,
yeah.
okay, this could actually work.
Well,
So
and how did you navigate that with Ben, or have you even done that yet?
So this is honestly, and like this is like a whole thing. This has
Right.
probably been the hardest part about it. Obviously, when you're adults, you understand what happens, and then you don't necessarily need to like talk about it in every situation.
Right.
And I can like start crying because every time Ben sees a baby now, he to a stranger to anyone, he goes, "Oh, my baby's in heaven," and he calls it his baby. And so like so I pick
Oh,
up my niece
wow.
from school. I know, so it's like constant bringing it up. So
Oh,
I pick up my niece from school and obviously we go to the playground. There's like a lot of kids. It's a preschool. And so all these kids were like chatting and they were talking about their ages. And Emmy was talking about her baby brother, which is my niece, and my nephew. And her brother is like younger. And she was like, "Oh, my baby is like 2," what she was saying.
yeah.
And then the other kid goes, "Oh, my baby is 1." And then Ben goes, "Oh, my baby's in the sky." In the
Oh my
so
God.
it's in like all these constant conversations. Like anytime he sees a baby, it's like, oh yeah, I mean, which is really sweet that he's like even cognitively like understanding, like,
Yeah.
okay, my baby's not here, like your sibling's not here. But yeah, it's definitely been harder than I anticipated for sure.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. And you probably just,
the other times we didn't have any kids, so like we got to just like grieve and process, but like add a
and
child.
share when you were, yeah, share when you were ready. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so difficult. And I was going to say, and I know I haven't really gotten into my situation, but I think at the same time, like having been in Brooklyn, it also has also kind of made it easier, would you say?
100%.
And
Yes.
I think that like,
Which
I
I know is
bet I'm
like annoying to hear because I feel like people like hate hearing that of
I was
like,
gonna say that, and I was gonna say, I bet people that do have children and have had miscarriage or are having a really hard time getting pregnant don't feel that way. But
no.
I think you and I both immediately said we felt that way, even in the waiting. Like I think even in the waiting to get the betas and waiting, like in my case to get scans and stuff, like it just number one, you're just freaking busy.
And you're
Like
done.
you're
You're
just
distracted. You're not thinking about it as much as like you were when you didn't have any children because it was all you were consumed with.
like I literally before, like in my previous losses, like I just think like the second I got pregnant, I just laid on the couch with a blanket pulled out to my chin, like for like weeks, like, is everything gonna be okay? And like I only would just like go out to get the appointments and just like constant Google, but they almost help you like intentionally just keep going with life. And so I
That's
think
so true.
that's been helpful. I didn't even think about the second half of like been even like really registering that yet.
Yeah. And the another part that he just like, because obviously and also like not everyone shares this much with their probably kids prior to a transfer. Again, this is just me being so like naive to the process, which is crazy because we've been in it for so long that I guess I did it, but I was like, I constantly, I mean, it was a boy, just whatever.
Yeah.
So I would
Yeah.
always be like, oh, brother's gonna be in mommy's tummy soon. We're gonna go to Mission and go pick up brother. Brother's gonna
When
be
you had, you've
tummy.
already had the name and
I have
everything.
everything. So like Ben even still says the name, which
Yeah.
we're not
Which,
gonna do right now,
yeah,
but
don't say, yeah.
um,
Um,
but
and
yeah, so
I,
it's like just
and like I would say, and I know going back, like when we both found out we were pregnant, I was like truthfully told Josh, like, if only one of us, if this only works out for one of us, I seriously hope this works out for Amanda because your situation is different. It's not, those were your three embryos that are genetically related to Ben. And so that is such a bigger, in my opinion, a bigger scale and a bigger, like, just, it's just, I don't have the right word, but it's like you're losing that chance that, for me, it was like, okay, like I could get, I could get pregnant 400 more times. Let's hope to God that doesn't happen. But, it's like there's, I guess, more opportunity for Brooklyn to have a sibling than I think in your current situation. And yours was just
yeah,
more sensitive, I guess.
yeah. And it just feels like a lot of pressure.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot
But
of
I,
pressure on that, which
but
is
I think well, I was just gonna say, I think you see families out there all the time that, and not that this is what you want, but that have adopted, that have biological kids, that have two kids that are adopted, and so they think like, okay, I'm only gonna have this one kid, and then they end up like family of four, which is like also an annoying story to hear in your current situation.
I know
But
for
it's just
like yeah, like you said, like I mean, there's so many ways to make a family, and like obviously we're already a family, but like to have more kids, and so like sure it can happen in many different ways, and we have no idea what it's gonna look like. But
right.
obviously, I've been like so clung on to like these embryos and like what I thought it would be, and so but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I guess so after that, you kept sweetly asking me like, how are things going? And like we had the first scan and so I went in, I think I told you this. We went on a Tuesday. I was supposed to wait. We went on a Tuesday because I was like having sharp pain. I convinced myself that I was having an ectopic pregnancy. Like I started having shoulder tip pain, like all the signs of an ectopic pregnancy. And so we went in super early. Everything was measuring perfectly on track. There's a gestational sac, there was a yolk sac, like everything was there. It was measuring exactly what it was supposed to measure. So I was like, okay, I don't even remember. Did I have hope at that time? Did I even tell you that?
Yeah, I
I
know
think I
you
was,
told me this, and you were all like, you were just like, what the F? Because
yeah,
I
I was
think
like,
you had
what?
already convinced yourself. And so then when
Yeah.
you saw the scan, you were like, wait, I'm so confused
Yeah,
now.
I was
And
so
you were just like in
confused.
like a state of like shock. You weren't like, this is not going to work at that point, I think. You were just like,
Right. I don't think I was like, this isn't gonna exactly. I think I was like, okay, whoa, maybe this is gonna happen. And then because I went in early, I had already had that Friday scheduled because I was running the half marathon. And so I did get on the Lovenox. That's just like what worked for Brooklyn, but it's a blood thinner. And so like if I were to fall, if like I had a gash, like if I had a hemorrhage, like a subchorionic hemorrhage, she didn't really want me running 13 miles. So I had the scan Friday just to like say like, okay, you're fine to go run. And that's when like things were kind of weird. So The gestational sac had gotten bigger, but it was not. So the first time I went in, the sac and everything was measuring exactly as like my dates with my later cycle would have been. So like, it was like, oh, whoa, okay, maybe my betas were actually really good. I'm for earlier than I thought. Then like 2.5 days later, they saw like the flicker on the yolk sac, but they couldn't see the fetal pole. And I hope that none of the ultrasound techs are listening, but the person that did the scan, I sent it to a couple of my high risk ultrasound tech friends and one of our guests who is a nurse practitioner at an IVF clinic. And they were like, the fetal pole's right there. Like, I don't understand why they said they couldn't see it. Like, they could see it in the picture and like you could see it flicker. And so anyway, so Friday I get that, but I'm thinking there's no fetal pole, like there's a flicker, but like, is it just dying? Like, what is it? And again, the gestational sac had grown, but not to now the sac, which is like the fluid around the baby, was smaller than it ever was in any of my losses or with Brooklyn. So I do this half marathon the next day, 100, I'm not pregnant. Like in my head, don't think that I'm pregnant, just completely block it out. I still am having symptoms through the weekend, still have symptoms Monday, Tuesday. No, I think I stopped having symptoms on Monday and but I'm like, I'm not pregnant. And so I was doing those Lovenox shots and they hurt this time. Like they really hurt. And so I just texted my OB. I'm like, look, I'm so done. Like, I'm so done. You guys didn't see the fetal poll on Friday. I like don't want to keep giving myself shots. These symptoms are so, because at that point I was bed rest with Brooklyn. Like I couldn't get out of bed. I was throwing up 5-6 times a day. And so I'm like, this just isn't right. Like, I know that this isn't how I'm supposed to feel. And granted, my sister-in-law kept saying, but can't you just not have hyperemesis the next time? And it's like less than 10% of people don't have it in a subsequent pregnancy. So I was like, I think this is more
That
that
will fall under that category.
yeah, I'm like, I don't think so. But what was I gonna say? So she texted me. Oh no, I texted her on Monday night and I was like, do you think I have silent endometriosis? Can we do a laparoscopy? And she immediately calls me. And again, I work with her, so we have like more of like an informal relationship. And she was like, are you bleeding? Like, what are you freaking talking about? Like, you're pregnant. And
Right now, what are you talking about? Like,
yeah,
yeah.
like I did all this research that silent endo can cause, recurrent loss, because at this point I'm mad. I'm not even sad. I'm just mad. I'm like, why does this keep happening? Because exactly like you, as much as like on multiple episodes that we've had together, as many times as I was like, oh, I know I'm going to miscarry again. I didn't really think that I would miscarry after Brooklyn. I thought like, I, I think that it was the same as you. Like, yeah, definitely I could, but I probably am not going to.
Yeah.
Like it just wasn't something, I don't know. And I think that's why we kind of waited so long too, because I was like, I just don't really know if I'm ready to have 2 kids, which is hilarious that after 3 years of, I know that I can't just get pregnant and have a kid, like that mentality starts to come back. Like I got overconfident. And
Yeah, 100%.
I was way too confident.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It just like, so long story short, she's like, just come in on Wednesday. Like, we're just gonna like, we'll scan you on Wednesday so you can stop being insane. And so I went in on Wednesday and I think I told you this. Maybe I told my sister-in-law, Sarah. So I went in on Wednesday and the doctor was running behind. She always comes in the scans with me just because she just likes to do that. But the tech, I had not had her before. And I said, hey, I just like want to give you a heads up. Like, we're just confirming a miscarriage. Like, I don't want you to like be really anxious. Like, I just didn't want her to feel bad.
Because you're like, it's
Yeah,
fine.
and I'm her boss. I'm her boss's boss. So I think she was just already like anxious that it was me. And she didn't know my history. And so I was like, don't worry, like we're just confirming loss. So she puts the screen on and sure the F enough, there's a effing baby and a heartbeat. And I'm like, are you? And she's like, she was
There's
so,
not a lot.
she was like, so did your physician say that you were having a miscarriage? Like, what's going on here? There's a baby and there's a heartbeat. And I just was literally like, I think I even text you, I didn't text you at first because I was like, shoot, I don't even know what to say. And you're like, how'd it go? And I was like, like I even texted Josh, my husband. I was like there's an action. Yeah, I'm like, I'm so confused. Like I was just so confused, but I think it's important to say the gestational sac was small. And I have just never I think this is another reason I'm really angry is because, so I've had 8 pregnancies, 6 losses, and out of all 7 pregnancies, I never had a problem with the gestational sac. Like I even had a blighted ovum, which is like, if you've had a blighted ovum, you know how frustrating this is. The gestational sac is like growing beautifully. Like it's just like the most beautiful gestational sac you'll ever see. And it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and there's no baby in it. And so you're like so frustrated. And so I'm all of a sudden like, small gestational success. What is small gestational miscarriage rate? Like I'm just so frustrated, but like, I think just how you knew with your lines that something wasn't right. And maybe somebody that had never been pregnant before, like, or, maybe you just wouldn't have even been a second thought. My OB has said nothing about the small gestational sac. The ultrasound tech said nothing. I kept saying, can you measure it? Can you measure it? And she's like, I don't know what you're worried about. Like, there's a baby with a heartbeat. Like, we don't do all these measurements. Like, we're looking at the baby. The baby's measuring perfectly. The heart rate's perfect for the gestational age. But I just saw it and I was like, this is not good. And so like for reference, when I went in the first time, I was measuring 5'2". When I went in, 2.5 days later, not the baby, the gestational sac was measuring 5'2". So it hadn't grown at all. Then when I went in on Wednesday, it was measuring 5'4". Like, that's not good.
And what is it? I don't know. Like, what is it supposed to? Is it supposed to like every day grow?
That's
Like,
a great question. Every single day, it's supposed to grow 1 millimeter. And so for the fact it went from 5.1 millimeters to 5.8 millimeters in 2.5 days. And so if you look, I always do research on like scientific journals and like look at true studies. Like we took 1,600 women and these were the outcomes and these were the percentages. So they have shown while gestational sac measurements don't necessarily mean miscarriage, or while they don't necessarily like mean an increased risk, that they saw, I think 99% or it might have even been 100. I think it was 100% of pregnancies that had less than 0.6 millimeters of growth a day ended in what they call spontaneous abortion.
wow.
Yeah. So I'm like seeing this and I'm like,
So this
these
is
are studies.
yeah.
Exactly. And then from Friday to Wednesday to again, I'm still measuring way too small. But what I think where I got really, really angry is that the baby is measuring perfectly and the heart rate's perfect. And so I'm like, you're just like, how? It's just a sac. It's not even a part of the baby. Like how and why? And the more research I've done, the more depressing it gets, as it says like women with small gestational sacs, typically like the embryo is genetically normal, which is just like heartbreaking, right?
There's nothing you can do to like, I mean,
They say you can drink water, but I don't think that like that's actually going to like really help if it's, I don't know. I don't know. I think so for me, that was kind of, I feel like I was super, super hopeful. What day are we at today? Friday. So I was super hopeful Wednesday. I think Josh and I actually became more hopeful yesterday. And then Brooklyn got up at like 5 this morning. And I grabbed her from the crib. I let her sleep in our bed for like another hour or two so we can get some sleep. And I like went to the bathroom before I put her back into bed and I'm spotting. So I texted you this morning and I was like, well, interesting timing for our episode. So I've definitely
and you
like,
didn't have any spotting with Brooklyn at all? Because I know sometimes spotting, not to like be the opposite of like, I know I'm trying to always stay positive for
you
you.
know,
But like sometimes you can, like I spotted with Ben the whole first and like almost all second trimester.
I mean, hey, look, I don't freaking know what's going on, but I will say like my concern with a small sac, my concern that like it's going to miscarry. And then, my beta 1 and 2 doubled, but my beta 2 to 3 did not, but it was like close enough. It was like 411 to like 798. So it was like right there. And I think I went a little bit before the 48 hours. So long story short, it was still like checked off, but I was spotting and then I actually stopped spotting and then I was spotting again, like right before we jumped on. So all 7 of my pregnancies, I never bled. Like all of my miscarriages were missed, which even like the chemicals, but that's just because I was so quick to get a beta. So like I saw that the beta dropped before I even started bleeding. But anyways, I think I was telling you like this has just definitely changed my outlook of like, okay, like are we gonna start trying next month? Like I don't know if it's sped up my outlook of like, okay, I do want two kids. Like in the last 7 weeks that I've been quote unquote pregnant, I have like come around to having another kid. I think Josh and I were getting really excited about it. And just like you were saying with Ben, you and Chris, like you kind of start saying like, oh, your baby brother, like we were convinced it was a boy just because I wasn't as sick, and like your baby brother, stop kicking your baby brother and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of where I'm at. I guess to Amanda's point, I should not say that I've had a miscarriage, but I am likely to miscarry by the time that this airs. So yeah, that's where we're at. But Amanda, at least you're ready. Like, yeah, no, I know. And you're ready to like try again quickly,
Yeah,
right?
I wanted to go right into it. We only have, this is our last embryo. So I have the outlook of it like, okay, we're either about to be like two kids family or we're just having one kid. And I just like want to know, like, I just like didn't want to wait any longer. And I'm like, I just need to know what happens. And like, okay, then I need to just like accept it, move on, and like be our little family. And that's it. So I wanted to go right into our next transfer. But I can't. So I'm kind of annoyed. But I appreciate like why my doctor is doing this. So she wants to like obviously she wants to change my protocol, and she wants to like do more testing on me prior to us doing our transfer. So she wants to do a full DNC, which I was like super confused about, and I've never had a DNC before. So of course I called
Yeah. Well, I
like
was shocked. I guess I didn't
like,
realize. Yeah, I guess that you did side attack with Shiloh, right?
yeah, yes, or yeah, I think it was that
You
one.
did. Like
Yeah.
the medication
Whatever the
at
medicine
home.
was. I don't remember the name, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't like, I've never experienced a DNC. So I was super confused because I'm like, I know like the baby wasn't like grown enough. Like I know I don't need
Right.
DNC, but she basically wants to go in to be able to like make sure there's no inflammation and there's like nothing in there and just like clear it all out. So she wants to do that. And then she's going to do the Emma and Alice, and then I always am like getting this wrong, but like the B1,
Yeah,
what is
no, it's like BL
it?
16,
Six,
BLH
something,
16 or
yeah,
something. It's for
something like that.
endometriosis markers. Yeah.
Yes. So she's going to do all of that. And then after that, obviously, depending on those results, will then depend on like our transfer. But if everything comes back normal, our transfer date is scheduled for August. But it
Gosh.
would have been sooner, but she didn't have any availability. So that's like also another thing. So I'm just like
And I and
in
I
this.
think the reason that you're doing like so much is because you have one embryo left, right? Like it wouldn't just be standard after one failed one
Yeah.
chemical
So
pregnancy. You all
she literally said, I don't even know if I told you this on our call. So I had a Zoom call because obviously she's in Michigan. So we had a Zoom call with her, and she literally goes at one point, she goes, okay, so like I know you have an open like communication with your donor. Do you think that she would give you more embryos? And I was like, no, that's like that door is closed. It's not an option. And she's
Well,
like,
does she even have any more embryos?
she meant like start over. And I'm like, first off, the sperm donor is anonymous. I don't even know if he's giving anymore. Like, so that, like, no. And
Oh,
that's her
wow.
to then like go through IVF. Like, no, there's 0% chance. And
Oh my
like, okay,
God.
then we need to throw everything at this because this is literally
Well,
your last embryo.
Well, I think that's great then. I think that's
Yeah.
great that she's like, and I know when you texted me and you're like, it won't be until August. And I'm like, well, we're almost in June. It's just so funny how the mindset is so different when like you're not in it. You're like, yeah, but like it's really only an extra 60 days. And you're like, it is an extra 60 days that every single minute is going to be torturous.
100%,
Yeah.
100%. And I've tried to like shift now that like there's literally nothing I can do to change it. Obviously, I'm like trying to just be like, okay, now I get to just like enjoy my summer and like have a drink by the pool and like not have to stress about like what meds I'm taking or doing my shots by 8 p.m. And so I'm trying to just shift my perspective of it and just be like, okay, like now I can just have a stress-free summer, and then at the end of the summer we'll like get back in.
Start.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's amazing. I know it's harder, easier said than done. And like every day it's gonna definitely, you're gonna change. You're gonna be like, oh, this is so easy. Like, oh, this sucks. Like, I know.
And
Well,
then
I
one big thing that they're doing differently, so they are giving me the autoimmune protocol this time. So
that I'm so
I'm,
jealous.
I know.
The prednisone, right?
So I'm doing prednisone, which I'm shocked I wasn't on prior. I had to be on prednisone at the end of my pregnancy with Ben. So like I have lupus, and so prednisone is like the biggest thing that always helps my lupus. So like
Oh,
whenever flare up, I get put on it. And so they're going to put me on that prior to the transfer. And then I am doing the Lovenox. So I'm like, so this. I know.
That's no, honestly, like they really weren't bad for me. I think it's not bad when you know that like there's like a bit like a healthy, but like, you know, like you're doing it before you get pregnant. You're doing it like as the baby's growing. I think for me, it's been so difficult because I'm like, I'm doing this in vain. I don't even know. Like I haven't done mine today. I didn't do it when I went in for the first scan because I was like, oh, surely there's nothing there. And then I think I texted you, maybe I texted my mom, but I'm like I'm gonna do one today, even though I know that like there's no point in doing it. But then you also don't want to feel like I'm the reason it didn't work out. So I'm excited you're getting the
Yeah.
Lovenox. This is the furthest I've ever made it in a pregnancy other than Brooklyn. So like,
Yeah.
while maybe this wasn't, it for us, like I do think it helps.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I'm excited, obviously thankful that she was willing to even like hear me out with the autoimmune stuff. Because I brought that up to her. And so that she's like on board with it. And then, yeah, so we'll see what the results say. So obviously if the like procedures in July come back like positive, that will like change our transfer date, which I'm convinced I have endometriosis. So
Me too.
I'm like convinced it's going to come back positive. And then I have like a bunch of travel coming up, like I'm going to like Europe and stuff. So I'm like, I won't be able to transfer until the end of the year. So I'm like, it's either August or December. Like, I don't know.
Well, it's gonna all be good. I'm really glad that you guys are doing like all the goods, like the preventative stuff, especially because there's one embryo left.
Yeah, no, I know. So
Okay, well, this is the
it'll be
longest.
good. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of life, what's happening for both of us right now. It's freaking wild.
That was wild. I don't think either one of us were expecting. I think really if we would have said like, let's guesstimate the future, we would have said you would be pregnant right now. It would have been normal. And I would have still just been like, laissez-faire, living life, like had no
Would have
thought
been
in the
convincing
world.
you, trying texting you, being like, please get pregnant with me.
Yeah, yeah. Like I had no, and now it just like got thrown into it. But anyways, obviously, I guess I will give an update at some point on what ultimately happens here. And then Amanda will keep everybody updated too. But thanks for, this is the longest episode you and I have ever done together. Other
Oh,
than our first one.
oh yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
wow.
fun times. All right. Well, I guess we'll talk to everybody later.